Thank you for joining me, Lindsay Rubnick, for Life on the Prairies podcast. And today we actually have two wonderful ladies joining us. It's a mother and daughter duo. And I'm going to let them tell their story and how they came to their community. But I am joined by Miss Frances Stewart, as well as her daughter, Carol Stewart. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to my podcast. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you for asking us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, great. So I really want you and our audience, basically I want them to know more about you, like not only your names, but maybe just a little bit of background. And then we can get into, what brought you here and, how your life has been in the community and so on and so forth.
I'm Frances Stewart. I'm lucky to have my mother, who is 98, still alive, and she lives in the Prairies too, right in our hometown. I'm the mother of Carol, a life-changing activist, and also a proud grandmother. I have a life partner who I'm happily married to, and I've lived in Dauphin for almost 43 years. Dauphin, Manitoba, that is.
Okay, excellent. So I like to ask this question. When you meet people, how do you tell people where the city of Dauphin is in terms of, if it's, because I often meet people and they say, oh, I know where Toronto is, or I know where Vancouver is, and then everything in between is a mystery. So how would you describe where the city of Dauphin is?
We're in the province of Manitoba. Winnipeg is the capital, and we're 3.5 hours drive northwest of Winnipeg.
Excellent. But as you said, you haven't always lived here.
No, I'm originally from Jamaica in the Caribbean. And I came when I was to Manitoba when I was 33. My then husband, Carol's dad, had got a job in Dauphin. And so Carol and I, a month later, took several flights and came direct to Dauphin.
So how did you guys decide that you wanted to come to Manitoba?
My husband actually was born in Manitoba, but then left when he was a baby. And we just thought it would be a great adventure to discover the prairies and try a different country.
Okay, good. So when you arrived here, what's your story? Like, tell us, what did you think? And when you arrived to Dauphin, Manitoba, what were the first couple of years like for you? How did you adjust?
It took quite a bit of adjusting, not to the weather, because it's so extreme. Everybody's equally cold or equally hot, depending on what the temperature is. But I came from Kingston, Jamaica, which is a vibrant cosmopolitan city, and Dauphin seemed so much quieter. I also had to get used to the prairies, to the wide open spaces, and it took me a little while before I could see the subtle differences and beauty of the prairies. But it was mostly positive. I made a point of getting to know my neighbors and trying to do roughly what the neighbors did. If they cut their grass, I cut my grass.
If they shoveled their snow,
I shoveled their snow. Exactly.
That's awesome.
And because Carol was 8 at the time, she was involved with school and lots of other activities. She got to know all the kids on the street. And so through her, I got to know parents. And one of the first things I did was volunteer at the school.
Oh, and that's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I volunteered as opportunities presented themselves. I volunteered, and Carol, I signed her up for skating and music and Highland dance. Every Caribbean child should be doing Highland dancing, apparently. and I volunteered with those groups as well. So that really increased my network. And so I had a good number of acquaintances and soon friends as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're speaking to that, because when people often arrive in Canada, sometimes there's not an expectation or not an opportunity in their own country to volunteer. And right, so I try to encourage my clients to, come out and volunteer. And I think that by you volunteering and doing what you did, you said exactly that. It strengthened your network. So did you feel more settled in the community, would you say, like from volunteering? Like, how did that help you?
Absolutely. And on several of my job interviews that I went to, people who were interviewing me, I had already met through some community activity or involvement. And that was, I think, a big help.
And that's a really good advantage of living in a small town, right? Because who you're sitting beside as you're watching your daughter do some Highland dancing could be the person that's going to interview you, and you have that ability to make that connection with that person.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. I'm going to continue on with you, Frances. So you got here, and so your husband's working, your former husband's working, and so you were doing lots of volunteering. And when did you decide that you would want to be like employed or get a job? Like,
the first job that I had was copy typing with the local newspaper, but it was a friend who was also Carol's music teacher who said they're looking for typists at the Dauphin Herald. Why don't you apply? So I did that 2 days a week. So I got my foot through the door, and they were going to pay me minimum wage. And I was just so surprised because I didn't realize that that's very much a part of being a newcomer, is that very often you start right back at the bottom. And so I was surprised. So they added 25 cents an hour.
And
more.
Did you ask them, or did you just...
No, I think I was so aghast that the person that was interviewing me, decided to make a great concession.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that's changed very much.
No.
In the Canadian immigration system, is that we have brilliant people with a high skill set that come to our country, and unfortunately, they they don't have the opportunity to practice what they did in their home country. Because what did you do back in Jamaica?
In Jamaica, I was a secretary, and I also did community development work, and I didn't have immediate opportunities to do that. But from the Dauphin Herald, I did a short stint as a chambermaid in one of the local hotels, and I did a short-term position gathering information for a local economic development office. And then from there, I was a secretary at the co-op. So at that point, I was back doing what I had done, but at a much lower salary.
Mm.
But it was such a learning experience. I really got to know my community through all the jobs that I did. So although it was hard to be lower down the scale, it was a real advantage.
So were you able to ever, overcome that? Were you able to, access better employment after that? Even though I know you enjoyed your jobs, it's just more.
Yes, I did. I worked my way, into working in the municipal office, and then I worked with community health services, and then I was on par with what I had been doing before in Jamaica, and it gave me job security and opportunity to supervise some of other staff and to really make a contribution in the community.
Okay. So you have lots of volunteerism experience, you have lots of employment experience, and then so you did that while raising Carol.
Yeah, she was wonderful. She kept saying to me, "Oh, Mom, you don't know how lucky you are to have me."
She was Mike generally can say that to me now.
Yes, exactly. But looking back, I agree with her. But yes, I worked community health services for 20 years, and then I retired.
Yeah, you retired. You came. Yeah, you've done a lot, but you weren't retired because
no.
Do we ever retire? Right.
Well,
so what are you doing now?
I've always been involved with the church that I attend, both locally and regionally, and even nationally. And some time ago, I decided that I should answer a nudge that I had been having to become an ordained minister. And so I pursued that, and now I'm an ordained deacon in the Anglican Church.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's quite an accomplishment.
It's a real privilege. And being a deacon is all about servant ministry. And I think that when we are in a community, whether we've been there just recently or for a long time, that service to others is really important.
Yeah, and I could tell that throughout ever since you got to Dauphin, you've been very service oriented, right, through volunteerism.
Yes.
And the jobs you've held, like community development.
Yes.
So that's what us three definitely have in common, because I'm a huge fan of community economic development, and I practice that as well. So it's just so much fun to do development, I think. So I guess, Frances, what I'd really like to know too is, seeing that you've been through all phases from, immigration to raising a daughter here, and now you're retired and you've achieved so many things. Do you have some advice that you'd want to give maybe newcomers to Canada, and even those who are hesitant about moving out to the prairies, and just kind of some advice and anything that you want to say to them?
I know that we all have to make well thought out rational decisions, but I think if along with that you take along a sense of adventure when you're stepping into new areas, that is really good. I can't stress volunteering and service enough. And I think just being kind and true to yourself, and a good friend to those people around you whenever possible.
Wow. You're just a really great person. I'm so happy that Carol brought you here today. Well, you just you exemplify everything, right? And that's what I'm trying to get across in my series, is that you can have a great life in a rural community out on the prairies, and it is what you make it. And I think you've done everything pretty much really well, right? Because I think you've hit it on the head where, again, you've volunteered, so you create that network. And then, even though you had much higher skills, you still took that job and you built yourself up, and, and then you became a supervisor. And even after your retirement, you became an ordained deacon, right? So that's great. Excellent. I don't know. Okay. So if there's anything else you want to add, feel free.
I think the other thing that is really important is to have a good resume. An effective and truthful resume is just a wonderful thing to have, and it doesn't hurt to get advice from other people. To read, to research, and read up on employment skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and where the jobs are.
Yes. That's really Carol's department.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay, so that's a good segue into Carol. But you know what? Before we start, I know it wasn't really something I asked. I want to ask you, though. I didn't really think about it until your mom was talking. And she had said that, when you guys came over here, it was it was either it could be really cold or really, really hot. What did you think of your first winter? Do you remember your first winter?
I do. We arrived in August. And
so we tricked you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember dying to see snow, because I'd never seen snow before. And we heard, and maybe it was in October, that there was snow up in Riding Mountain, just south of Dauphin here. And so we drove up into the park to go and find snow. And it was this little scattering of snow. And it was, I remember it, like it was yesterday. And then when the real snow came, it was amazing. It was so much snow all the time. We had a blast. Oh,
that's good. There you go. But you find if you dress properly for snow, right? And you had said it, because everybody's going to be cold together. Everybody's going to be warm together. Yes. But you can really prepare for our winters. And as long as you know what we call a toque, you have a toque, mitts.
Warm underwear.
Yeah, warm underwear, and and then summertime we get up to like plus 35 here as well, right? So we have such a diverse climate in the city of Dauphin, and I think the city of Dauphin, are we not the
City of Sunshine?
the city of Sunshine, but Vermilion growers also located themselves here, and it's because of how many days we have a sunshine, right?
Yep.
So excellent.
Yep. It takes a bit of time to figure out what to wear when. But in our first winter here, my dad built an igloo on the front lawn, and all the neighbors thought that was pretty cool. I think we were the first igloo in Dauphin, so there you go.
Yeah, I think
immigrants bring skills.
Yeah, right. And I think my sister and I, we built an igloo maybe once or twice growing up, and that was it. So, and I think you might have a hard time finding people on the prairie saying they built an igloo. Yeah. So that's interesting. All right, Carol. So you are with us today too, and I want to know your Canadian story in terms of, so if you want to take us back to when you first arrived, or kind of like just tell us whatever you feel that I think newcomers would want to hear, and even people would want to learn, like just somebody who's been here forever, right? I've grown up in Canada, and I'm always really excited to hear people's stories and what they learn, because then I learn from them, right? So yeah.
Well, happy to share. I immigrated with my parents from Jamaica to Dauphin, Manitoba when I was 8. And probably being 8 years old helped, because kids tend to live more in the present and perhaps even the future than they sort of dwell in the past. So it was a big change for me. It was a big city, moved to a small town from, as you mentioned, the climate and so forth. I had an accent when I came here, a Jamaican accent, and so it felt like I stood out a bit, but I have to admit I worked pretty hard to lose that accent. I regret that a bit now. But it was good. I love sports, and there was lots of kids in my neighborhood, so we played outside. We did a lot of that. We played road hockey. We went down to the Vermilion River, to look at crayfish and get into trouble. So that, my youth part, I think, was pretty decent. My parents encouraged me to play music, so I played the violin here, did lots of recitals in the local festivals, and we started a string quartet, and we used to play all the local events. And I played a lot of tennis, so I lived at the tennis courts. Academics were very important to my parents and to myself as well. So there were lots of school clubs like debating, and some people might remember Reach for the Top. It was a game show for students, for high school students, so I joined that. So those sorts of things really helped to help, to make friends, but also to be connected, to various community groups as well. My mom mentioned the Highland dancing. I wasn't very good, but it also meant that we were connected to, to the local Legion, and I ended up playing in the pipe band and being in the parades and things. So it's, it's baby steps, but then it's remarkable how full your life becomes if you try a little bit of everything. And so I think that was really important to my success as a teenager, and then in high school and so forth. So I, left high school here in Dauphin when I was finished, and went to Brandon University, which is about 2 hours south, so not too far from home. But my father went there, and my grandfather was a professor there, so it made sense that I was in Brandon, and that, again, was moving to a slightly larger city, but still pretty small in the big scheme of things. And after that, I went to London, Ontario to go to Western University for graduate school.
Okay. So then you decided, well, and lots of us do leave for, to pursue university, but we do have a local college right in the city of Dauphin that Carol is actually our executive director for. So, and I'm a huge proponent of community colleges. But I do understand that, people do leave, and they go away for education. And so tell us about, you, when you went and you got your graduate designation, did you stay there in the London area, London, Ontario?
I did,
area?
yes. Yeah. I did my master's, and then I did some PhD studies as well. And I ended up working, actually I was a faculty member at Western University for perhaps 10 to 12 years. And then I moved into community development, because that's where my research and my academics sort of took me, was exploring how to grow communities, how to, be a participatory and a collaborative sort of instigator and innovator. And I ended up working in employment and training and education for 15 years. And I can't say enough about how important it is to have access to post-secondary education and institutions. And in Dauphin, Manitoba, we're lucky to have Assiniboine Community College, which is the area's only post-secondary institution. And it means that people can stay and get degrees and get diplomas and learn skills and be connected to an academic network as well without having to go away. And if you do go away, which as you mentioned, many of us do, it's always a great place to come back to.
Yes. And that's what I want to. And then for some reason, I think it's because we just realize how great it is here. We return.
We do.
Right? But I do want to say about Assiniboine Community College is that the one thing I love about the college is they design their programs to meet the needs of the local area. So if you do end up taking, a diploma or certificate from ACC, you're bound to end up with a job, and a pretty good paying job too, I must say. So
yeah, our graduates do really well. And in part, it's because at Assiniboine, it's about learning as well as doing, I suppose, as well as learning. So it means that even as people are going through their programs, they're getting connected to local employers, they're meeting, sort of the influencers in their sector or their industry. And yes, it's a very responsive institution. And so it means that we're offering programs for people to graduate and find jobs that are in demand.
Okay. So then so let's talk about you, like moving back here, right? So you're probably pretty set in London, Ontario. And actually my mom was born and raised in Windsor, Ontario, so I know that area pretty well. Yeah. And then she married my dad and they came out here. So that's like how I ended up out here. But anyways, so let's talk about when you're kind of like, were you considering moving back here, or what was kind of how'd you land back up here in Dauphin?
Well, I was very settled in London.
Okay.
And I worked with a lot of immigrant and settlement organizations in London and that region in southwestern Ontario, particularly to help people find work. And I never really thought of myself as much as an immigrant there. Perhaps it was because we were all sort of new. But it was... And I have a spouse and I had a child in London, and so they are also very settled there as well. But you know what it was? I think it was sort of the onset of the pandemic and not being able to come back to Manitoba as frequently to see my parents and my family and my friends here. And I really felt that pull. And then there was also a part of me that wanted my daughter, who's 10, to get to know her grandparents here in Manitoba better and to see where I grew up and where I came from. I mean, because really, ultimately now I am from Dauphin. So that was important to me to have them be closer and to get to know each other better. And my husband's retired and he was up for an adventure. So we started to look at what sort of skills I had that I could transfer to a new role here in Manitoba. And he started looking for houses to buy. And slowly but surely the plan sort of came together and I started saying, sort of my goodbyes, and this opportunity came up in Dauphin. And I'm a huge advocate for post-secondary education. And so being the director of a campus of a community college seemed like a really great fit. And plus it meant I got to come home and, live near my mom.
Oh, yeah, and that's everything. So how hard was it? Was it hard or to find housing in the city of Dauphin, or what did you think?
We're still looking.
Okay.
So it's been, we've been here 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
There are options. We do have some privilege in being able to wait for the house that we're looking for, that we're going to buy, because it's a big decision. However, we've certainly kept our eyes on, the rental market and so forth. And we're currently renting right now. And it's a lovely, lovely spot. It's on Dauphin Lake, which means that it's like a bit like living we live at the lake. It's like having a cottage at the lake and living there all the time. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. So that's certainly, I would say, to be completely transparent, that is a challenge. Yeah. But I have students that come to the college, and they are coming from outside of town, and they're able to find places to settle while they do their studies here.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of interest and commitment by people in Dauphin and the Parkland area to helping newcomers and immigrants find appropriate housing.
The Parkland Ukraine Family Fund that I volunteer for, and actually the gentleman who produces my podcast, his mom knows a lot about it. So anyways, we were able to, well, not me personally, but there was an individual on our committee that has found 65 homes for 65 families in the city of Dauphin within the last 2 years. So there's a number of opportunities and potentials, but there's a difference between renting and buying.
Yes, and I will say that it's a pretty significant inventory of small homes for sale, and many of them are very lovely. Many have just been recently renovated, and they're perfectly perfectly nice homes, and they're affordable. In London, Ontario, the average house price is probably more than half. More than twice as much in London to buy a house than it is here in Dauphin.
Really? So do you know what would be the average, like 500,000 or 600,000?
Over 600,000, probably closer to 700,000 to buy a house in London, Ontario. Whereas here in Dauphin, I regularly am checking the real estate listings, and there are dozens of houses for under 200,000 here.
Wow! So that's like a $500,000 savings.
Yeah.
Right?
That's considerable.
It really is, and I think when you talk about your life, or you turn around at the end of the day and you look back on your life and you think about it, and it's like, you always want to have a beautiful house and you want to be happy in that house. But I think, you do want to take solace in the fact that you didn't overpay and that you didn't work just to have a house, right? You worked to have a good life. And so, having to pay an exorbitant amount for a place to live is something that I've never had to face, right? Because I've always lived on the prairies and we've always had affordable housing, high paying jobs, right? So I've never, but you are right. You do have the time to look and see what's best for you. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, so you convinced your husband and daughter to move back to Dauphin, and they had been here a couple times before though, right?
Yes. On family visits. Yeah.
Excellent. And so they were more than willing to come back with you.
I wouldn't say more than willing. I would say they were willing to.
They were
willing to take the leap of faith, for sure. So that is really, that's all you can ask sometimes. Yeah. And as a result, my husband, he loves to fish, and this is the perfect place. The prairies are covered in water, and so he, lots of fishing. He loves to watch the skies, and so he sets up his telescope, and you can see as many stars here as anywhere else in the world. My daughter, she's in gymnastics and sports and crafts and things, so she's getting settled in her school. So yeah, it takes some time and some patience, but we're getting there.
Oh, good. And she made, I've heard she's made a good friends with one of the Ukrainian newcomers family.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's
Zlata,
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Excellent. So is there anything else you guys want to share? But I love how you brought up, though, I totally forgot to bring up the fact of all the extracurricular things you can do in the city of Dauphin, right? Mm-hmm. Like, fishing, snowmobiling, whatever it is, because we are a very outdoor community.
Yes.
Right? Like, be it if it's minus 30 or if it's plus 30, a lot of our activities, if not like practically all, seem to revolve around being outside, right? And we have the national park, as I always say, our backyard to play in, Rocky Mountain National Park. So thanks for bringing that up, because I would slip my mind.
And there's lots of music, and there's lots of cultural stuff, and lots of food. A lot of things revolve around food and music and
that's a good point
sports.
As well to bring up, is that we have we have theater group, and there's lots of music available here, and there's just lots to do. There really is. So I'm going to ask each of you, if somebody were to come to the city of Dauphin for a day, and you each can have your answer for this, but if they were to come to the city of Dauphin for one day, what would you tell them to do? Where would you tell them to go eat? Just what, if you could plan the day for them, what would you do?
I think take them on a short drive around the town and show them places like the museum and downtown, which isn't big, but it is our metropolitan center, and show them the recreation grounds and all the facilities that we have there. And then I think I would say go to lunch at Karina's. It's it's good, reasonable prices, and a wide variety of people go there. And I think in the afternoon I would say go over to the Arts Centre, the Watson Arts Centre, and look around. It was the former city office, and but they have. They have a small gallery, and they have craft items, and it gives you a sense of some of the cultural things that are going on.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. That sounds like a fun day. And you, Miss Carol, what would you tell our friends to do if they came to Dauphin?
Absolutely say stop in to City Hall, which is right downtown, and introduce yourself and say hello to the mayor, David Boziak. You can tell him that I sent you. And lots of friendly people at City Hall. You could pick up a visitor's guide to Parkland region or the sort of activities guide for Dauphin. And then you can essentially just, put your finger on any page, and there'll be something fun going on or something interesting to do and see.
Yes, you're right, because we also have what's it called, the derailers? Is that what? Or we have that, right? So we have bike paths, we have hiking paths, we have. Oh my goodness!
Yes. Yeah. Regardless of the season, there's going to be something fun.
Yeah, I think you need more than a day, right? So they might as well just, as I said before, just bring their suitcase and maybe a couple more, and they might just stay, right? So
yes,
right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to add about your immigration journey or? Living and working in the city of Dauphin and ultimately returning. Any advice you want to give to our listeners? And there'll be people that are wanting to relocate to the prairies or considering it or immigrating. So we have a kind of a diverse audience.
Well, one of the things that's intriguing about Manitoba and that people from across Canada kind of joke about is that on our license plates here on vehicles, it says Friendly Manitoba. And I'm legitimately here to say that is not just a cliche. That when I have traveled across Canada, and particularly when I lived in Ontario, people used to comment on how often I would try to look people in the eyes or make eye contact and smile at strangers. And I realize now that was me always looking for a familiar face. And when I came back to Dauphin, suddenly familiar faces are everywhere. So even as an immigrant, you'd be surprised how quickly you can fit into your community here. And even if and when you leave and return, so many of those folks are still here, and still it's still wonderful to run into people that I may have not seen for 30 years, but they're just as friendly and lovely as when I met.
Excellent. And you, advice, anything?
I think Carol said that beautifully.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So you got, it was great to hear your stories today. And, you really reminded me of all the resources that we have in Dauphin in terms of like activities, but also resources. We should mention that we do have a settlement office in the city, and we have, the Parkland Job Opportunities Center. So we have lots of resources in terms of if somebody wants to move to our community as well. That we just have a lot of, complimentary services that you don't have to pay for. We have beautiful arts, and arts and entertainment that people can do. So, yeah, you ladies have really reminded me of all the fun things that we have around here. Because sometimes when you live here for a long time, you just forget, right? So,
yes, you do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And, I look forward to chatting with you guys more in the future, hopefully. Thanks
so much, Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody, for joining me for Life on the Prairies podcast and on our YouTube channel. And if you want to head over to 100meridian.ca, feel free. That's where you'll get to know me better. And thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time.
And I will roam these dusty country roads, been searching all this time.